My dad used to be a sewer maintenance worker in LA. He would always tell me crazy stories about his job. Usually, he would tell me about the weird stuff he'd find down there, like an inflated pleasure doll, or about just how many homeless people live under LA. However, he would occasionally tell me stranger stories, like how there were some places in the sewers they couldn't go to because it was too dangerous. And one time, when he was a little drunk, he told me about a coworker who went missing in the sewer and was never found. But my dad says he and a small team of sewer vets did find his bones, and that they were broken as if someone or something was chewing on them. Hey guys, I'm listening. Wasn't expecting many people to care about my dad's creepy story, especially on Modern X. So, I'll start with some context. My dad does not work there anymore. In fact, he does not even live in California anymore. He lives in Florida now. I live in a smaller city in the Central Valley. Now, I called my dad for clarification about his time in the sewers and chat, so I have two stories for you guys. The missing coworker one, and the one that actually scared the shit out of me. So, accurate to my dad, LA has the largest sewage system in the world. Some tunnels are so big you can drive a truck in them, and some are so small you have to crawl on your belly to get in. Apparently, they use drones for those now. Now then, they send guys down to maintenance. They go in a pair or in groups, and everyone gets a radio, a hard hat, and a reflective vest. Hell, apparently there was a blockage in one of the tunnels. They usually do regular patrols to make sure they don't get this bad, but this one happened overnight. They sent 3 guys down. To get to where the blockage was, they would have to wander through those dark smelly tunnels for about an hour, from the manhole to their destination, but there was a shortcut through one of the small tunnels. The 3 decided to split up. 2 who were too big to fit would go around, and the smallest guy would slip in and get a head start on clearing the shit. Well, apparently, all was then fine, and they made regular radio calls to each other and the surface. When the little guy got to the source, he radioed in and said he would start trying to clear the way. Then there was radio silence, no matter what the others would say to him. When his coworkers finally got there, the sewage wasn't stuck, but the guy was got. They looked for him a bit, but couldn't find him. When he didn't turn up, they sent in search parties, one of which influenced my dad. Well, eventually, they did find him a few days later. Dead. Mostly a skeleton, with his reflective vest and torn up clothes being how they ID'd him. And well, all of his bones were chewed on. Now, the official story is that when he unclogged the shit, a tidal wave of shit swept him away, where he drowned, and his fucked up state was due to rats, and the fact that apparently things decompose pretty quickly down there due to the bacteria. But my dad and the other guys know better. Apparently, that's not what killed him. Story 2. So, the things that my dad think got the guy was homeless people. So, let me explain. LA has a fuck ton of homeless people, even back in boomer times. Most of them live in the state-mandated shanty towns, Skid Row, but some of them live in the underground or in abandoned buildings. Well, apparently, they cause some problems. They can clog sewage down there with their stuff and damage infrastructure as they make their way around. Most of them get into the sewers not by manholes, but by literally digging their way in and out through the basement of abandoned buildings. So, why does my dad think they are responsible for killing that poor maintenance worker? The hobos who live down there have it bad. There is no light, and it is full of shit. It's also a labyrinth down there. Sewer workers need radios and maps to find their way around, but the homeless people, well, some of them get lost and stay down there. My dad says they look horrific. They are skinny and malnourished. They are pale from lack of sunlight, and they all look diseased. Their legs are covered in dried caked in shit and filthy, and they are covered in infected scabs. When my dad first started to work down there, we saw a few in one of the larger tunnels. As the workers were walking through, noting the location so they can inform the attorneys, along the edge of the small group of normal homeless, my dad saw one of the fucking sewer people. A more experienced coworker pointed him out and said, "Watch out for those ones." My dad thought the guy was just messing with him, but he realizes that the normal bums were going to give it a wide berth, even to the point of wading through the pool water than walk near it. A few years later, my dad and a buddy were doing regular maintenance in some of the deeper tunnels when they saw one of the sewer people, that's what he called them, eating the guts of a dead dog. When they saw it, the coworker says they should head for the surface now and began to make frantic radio calls. When they got back, the guy told my dad that some of the homeless down there were dangerous and to stay away from them. Always call them in and leave the area if he sees one or if something seems suspicious. So, after all that shit, I asked my dad why he didn't tell people. He only laughed and said people don't care. They are already scared of the sewers and the homeless anyways, so it did not matter. And on top of that, they could get into trouble if they started to make a big deal about it and a supervisor heard. So, there you have it, X. Stay out of the sewer. Ex-homeless stories, mole people, traffic rings. Does anyone have any good stories about tribes of homeless living in sewer systems, underground tunnels, or abandoned subway offices/repair stations? Did Mike Tyson say something true when he said the homeless are kidnapped by the rich and made to kill each other in gladiator fights? I know most homeless are either insane and/or addicted to drugs and or alcohol, but maybe they have some sort of mafia, controlling beggar system or extorting hitchhikers, backpackers, and runaway kids into paying for squatter houses. Many of the hobos at the nearest city to me aren't actually homeless, and the police have told people not to give them money. A taxi driver once told me he gave a homeless guy a lift to a rather wealthy student area. However, in that area, there are many grimy underpasses and bridge spots that they apparently hide under. Easy in on here. In the streets/prisons out here, there's a lot of stories about a group in Phoenix called Midnight Productions, which kidnaps and tortures/murders homeless people for snuff films with either the approval or participation of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. I figure the reports are pretty exaggerated, but I don't doubt there is a grain of truth. MCSO has a reputation as maybe the country's most brutal and corrupt department. That's where Joe Arpaio worked, and even if the snuff film/trafficking elements are exaggerated, it's pretty much a given IMO that officers were assaulting or killing homeless people off the clock. Anyway, pretty much everything else you wrote about happens. It's just a lot less glamorous and X-worthy than it seems. When a bunch of desperate, unstable people with nothing left to lose are left with no structure or accountability, they will assault, rob, and extort one another. Gangs will form. I'm sure sometimes, and places, they take on a more cult-like or tribal style, but I've never seen it. They are more like prison gangs, very rudimentary power structures enforced with knives and bats. Even the child trafficking rings the feds love to brag about busting are usually just motel pimps managing their teenage girlfriends. No reason to kidnap strangers when money and sex can be had a lot easier through good old-fashioned manipulation. There is definitely plenty of serial killers targeting homeless people too. Supposedly one active in New Orleans right now. 9 out of 10 of those deaths are never investigated, especially if it's made to look like an OD. Seemingly long hallways and passageways that continue to go on forever. Pretty much a magnet for the occult and supernatural. Could easily get lost and makes you feel disorientated, as if the walls were surrounding you, bringing a sense of dread and hopelessness. Lots and lots of uncharted areas that have not been discovered yet. Are the Paris catacombs a real-life backrooms? I have been down in those tunnels tons of times, and I can tell you that they are oddly not spooky. It's actually somewhat serene. For one, they are not sewers. You can take a manhole to reach them, but once down there, it does not smell like sewage at all, and there is no sewage to be found. Not much trash either, to be honest. It's surfing, like going spelunking. The tunnels are incredibly quiet. You don't hear traffic noise at all. You don't even feel vibrations from traffic or the subway lines at all either, since a lot of people expect that. I went for the NYC subway tunnels, and that is more a sewer and is oddly more frightening. There are actually large openings within the catacombs, plaza-like spaces that different groups and people claim for their own and hold parties or just hang out in. Me and some friends have held black-tie dinners down there. Bringing down the food and cooking instruments was an adventure in itself, and took 3 days. There are some legends about spooky stuff for sure. Like, there is a legend of a guy who just walks around the tunnels naked and blocks passage to some people unless they give him food. He basically lives down there. But the tunnels themselves are not spooky. What is frightening is the complete and utter darkness, and the fact that if you are not careful, you can easily fall into the lower aqueducts located below. There are many random holes in the tunnels. There's also sections where the tunnels themselves change in shape and size, making them hard to traverse. When you add in the fact that there are only so many exits and entrances, and your personal map must be constantly updated, it makes getting trapped down there the thing that scares you most. No skeletons at all, and we would travel through the tunnels extensively, mostly to update what tunnels were still traversable and what exits had been removed. Roadwork would many times tar over or bolt closed old manhole entrances. The French have a whole police division dedicated to patrolling the tunnels, but they are mostly harmless. They go down there from time to time and will ask you to leave if they find you going there, but they won't actively force you out. Oddly, real cops are worse. They will arrest you, as some of the parties that happen in the tunnels are known to be raves that involve drugs, etc. Again, your worst enemy down there is the dark. The dark is like nothing you've ever encountered in your life. It's like being in a sensory deprivation tank, with the silence and utter darkness. Without a torch, there is no ambient lights whatsoever, and there is no obvious way to exit to find light. The tunnels are a maze, and even vets get turned around with maps and a light. Meet some friends online from the UK a couple of years ago. Always wanted to see the UK, Big Ben, Stonehenge, etc. as a little kid. Save up some money and finally go there. Meet my internet bros and stay there for a while having a good time as they show me around the usual touristy sites. Then COVID hits. Fuck. Decide to stay a little bit longer because it was the early days of it and I did not want to get on a plane and catch it. One friend is into urbex though, says we could still do that with all the shit closed. Suggests he show me around the tunnels under London. Said he found some maintenance tunnel that looks really old, connects to a subway maintenance tunnel, and maybe even connects to some old bomb shelter shit because he saw dirty old gas masks and stuff down there. Said he managed to get in and out without getting caught before, despite the CCTV cameras fucking everywhere because the entrance is a grate in some alleyway. I'm nervous, but after a couple of pints I agree. Dumbest decision of my life. Here is where it gets weird. We get to the grate. Despite the liquid courage, I was secretly hoping someone would have it locked up in the time since he found it. Nope, it's still unlocked. He opens his backpack and hands me a pair of gloves, knee pads, and a headlamp. Put them on and go in behind him, closing the grate behind us. We are crawling on our hands and knees through some dirty drainage ditch or something. Really starting to regret my decision, but don't want to look like a pussy. We jump down into a wider hallway. Beneath us is another grate for the water to go to the sewer or whatever, but to the left and right is a long concrete hallway with pipes and wires running along the walls. No light except our headlamps. Spooky as fuck. We go right, then take a left, then a few more turns down long hallways that all look the same. We find a staircase that goes down. Bro said he's never been here before. Dude, what the fuck? I wanted to see some old gas masks, but again, I'm never one to complain. Tried to be a trooper. We go down. There's a landing, and another landing. Go down 3 fucking stories underground. More tunnels. I'm getting nervous that we might get lost because we've taken a few more turns through the same generic tunnels and we're tipsy. But bro assures me he can remember his way out. Press X to doubt. We find a ladder, but he starts to climb down. Finally, voice my concerns. Bro, I am not going down there. Come on, mate. We'll just check this place and out and go right back up. Flashbacks to when I was still in middle school and my friends were always getting me involved in their stupid ideas and getting me into trouble with them because I have a hard time saying no to people. I'm still the same idiot, I guess. Figure I can't get back by myself anyway. Go down with him, shitting a brick down every rung of this rickety, rusty old piece of shit ladder. At the bottom of the ladder is a small corridor with a metal door. Oh good, it's probably locked and we can go back up. Look closer, it does not even have a lock. I mean, only a dumbass would trespass this deep down here anyway, so they probably don't need a lock. Buddy opens the door, light comes out. Bro peeks in, but I can't see yet. He crouches down, closes the door partially, and whispers hoarsely to me to turn my headlamp off. What the fuck? Says it's a hallway with lights in it. He opens the door, and I stand crouched just above him. We peek in. A long hallway with fluorescent lights, tiled floor, and walls painted white. The fuck? No way am I going in there. We argue about it in whispers for a bit, before he once again gets me to follow him. There's one of those swinging doors with a window, like they have in hospitals. Friend peeks in, crouches down, tells me to look. What is it? Just tells me to look. Peer inside. See rows of hospital beds, and those fabric dividers they have in hospitals. No doctors or nurses, just people on beds. They are all laying asleep, with medical tubes in their mouth, hooked up to ventilators. What the fuck? Hear a door open down the hallway, voices and footsteps. Nope the fuck out of there the way we came. Sure enough, bro somehow managed to mostly remember his way out of there, only taking a few wrong turns. Book a flight out of London the next day, still not getting to see Stonehenge. Buddy messaged me, saying he got a visit from the police a few days later. Apparently, they just said something like, "We urge you not to trespass again. It's a criminal offense and dangerous. You better not post any dangerous conspiracy theories on the internet either." No idea how they knew it was him. He said he never posted anything about it either, so the last part was especially weird. Any ideas on what the fuck we saw, X? I have heard there was another part of the catacombs that are forsaken. The corridors to this place are supposedly narrow, and the entire place has not even been mapped out. Also, they're easy to get lost in. I read about this somewhere, but I can't find the article. I've been down there regularly for years, not much X-worthy. It's a huge network consisting of old stone quarries, part of it having been turned into catacombs that is closely interlinked with the sewer system, subway tunnels, various maintenance access for large and deep buildings, and even some wine caves. It's very dangerous to go there for many reasons. Getting lost is not much of a problem as long as you don't go too deep. Plus, people will eventually find you, but then there are many deep pits with very slippery edges, things that could collapse, toxic fillings, and consolidations. And people. Some people go down there to get into fights and mug people. A special police unit goes down there, mostly to see if everything is okay, see what needs to be consolidated, see if people dug new entrances, and fill them with some more toxic concrete. When there are parties, people usually gather and open up some sealed down entrance just for the night, using some impressive cutting tools because there's quite strong locks and doors they use to close accesses. As for the deeper parts, I've been to many. It took me some speleology training, and I went down there with 3 actual speleologists, fully equipped with adequate gear. All we found was endless tunnels of nothingness, some underwater rivers, some underground life, the usual. No skeletons anywhere, nor tags, so apparently, no one ever went this deep since they were dug. As for the only creepy story I can tell, see next post. So, I told this story so many times, I am not even sure of the details, whether that was the real thing or if I simply added it to make the story better. But the rough thing is, I had arranged a place with friends, with stuff we had found in the catacombs, like chairs, benches, a table, plus some stuff like candles, a deck of cards, a CD player, and speakers, and we used to hang out down there. We also had found the dummy, which we used as a coat hanger with his arms spread. He was wearing a large, torn coat and some weird-looking mask. That's how we had found him, and he was just standing there, creepily looking at us, smoking and drinking. But at some point, people found our hideout and trashed everything. We moved it several times, repaired the broken chairs, moved our dummy friend, and every time the same thing happened. At some point, we wanted to catch the fucks, as they always did this the same day. So we went there, put our coats on our dummy friend, drank some beers for like 2 hours, and then we split in groups of 2 and hid in the tunnels leading to the place, hiding in almost complete dark, only with the faint light of a candle, waiting for them. After a long time of nothing having happened, my pal went to check on the others. About a minute later, I heard a scream, then footsteps, so I quickly lit my lantern and got up and saw someone running away, screaming and flailing his arms. I rushed to our hideout and found all of my pals who had come too and thought I was the one screaming. All of our stuff was wrecked as usual, which was especially surprising considering we had not heard anything, and if the guy running away had done it, well, no one saw him coming. And that's when we realized the dummy was gone. I still don't understand why, nor even how, someone managed to impersonate our dummy for a couple hours, just standing there, holding our coats, watching us. That's it. This is all you need to know about those catacombs, really. City next to mine recently replaced its old storm drain sewer system. Last entrance to old storm drain system has not been bricked off yet. Friends and I decide to explore said drainage system. 1 flashlight, 2 other guys have lights on their phones. We split up at a fork. 2 guys go left, me and 2 others go right. After a few minutes, we reach something that looks like a maintenance room. Old, damaged control panels, ripped up swivel chair, clipped wires strewn about the floor, etc. Has 2 metal doors, 1 on each end of the room. Door 1 is slightly open. Door 2 is sealed with big padlock. Peek in door 1. Another room slightly larger, with 2 large metal tables against the walls. Bunch of stuff on tables. Old shit from 30s and 40s or something. Retro as fuck, I don't know. Both friends pile into the room. We begin looking for the stuff and talking loudly as we pocket stuff we want to keep. Hear a loud bang outside room. We all go silent. Start laughing. Assume it's the other guys fucking with us. Very funny guys. Come check out what we found. Silence. Guys, come on, it's not funny. No reply. Hear some heavy footsteps. Spooked as fuck. Peek out door. Door 2's padlock is busted off and door is wide open. Smell of rot and something sour yet sweet hits my nose. Friends are all wide-eyed. Nope the fuck out of there. Never found out what it was, but our other friends we split up with said they felt uneasy without us, so we found them back at the entrance when we left. I still have some of the shit I stole from there too. I have. Back in high school, me, along with 3 friends, went urbexing and found a passage to an old and dried out sewer system covered in mold and moss everywhere. Still fucking stinks like piss and shit, even though it looks almost a century old. Me and 1 friend bailed because we ain't going to a literal shithole, and the other 2 kept going. Next day, those 2 idiots did not show up at school, and their parents said they didn't come home last night. So they all questioned me and the bro that I bailed with about the sewers, and when we got there, we found them laying on the ground, passed out. I guess they can't handle the stink after all. Me, that bro, 2 teachers, 1 from student body, 1 gym teacher, in case we run into anyone, went into the sewers and found them laying not too far from the entrance. They just lay there, out cold, like they chugged gallons of vodka, and the smell still fucking lingers. Only a bit lighter maybe, because it's the day, and the wind blows stronger than the night, I don't know. The gym teacher poked them both. No response, but still clearly breathing, so they decided to tell us to bring them to the school's infirmary first, and if still nothing, they'll call the ambulance. Around 40 minutes, the teacher was about to call the ambulance, but they finally regained consciousness, and before they could be questioned, they puked all over. Even got some on the teach and the nurse, and the teacher just smacked their hands, cack. After they stopped, they remembered hearing some faint but deep grunting in the distance, and suddenly, the smell turned horribly pungent and thick, so much so that they felt like drowning, and when they tried dragging their asses to the exit, the smell overwhelmed them, and they dropped. That's all. The entrance of the sewers were blocked off by makeshift barriers made of branches and stones, and those 2 collapsed bros were suspended for a week. Poor bastards. Luckily, me and that 1 bro were fine, because they considered us cooperative with the investigation or something, I don't know. OP here. This happened when I was about 12. Be me. Around 2007, to 2008, in SoCal. A riverbed runs the entire length of the neighborhood. School is located in same neighborhood. Would use the riverbed as a shortcut to get to my block. Friends and I would walk it all the time. Would occasionally see animals, rabbits and lizards mostly. We took particular interest in this giant, house-sized sewer grate tunnel that ran under the street of our neighborhoods. It would make noises sometimes. Sounded like a very deep, low breathing. You would feel it in your ears and chest sometimes. Friends and I would go down there and throw rocks at the grate because the vibration made a really cool echo. Do this for consistently for about 4 months, almost every other day after school. Would occasionally hear movement coming from inside this giant tunnel. One time, friend swore he had seen and heard something inside the tunnel. Said it was fleshy colored and did not have a face. Called bullshit. It's mostly pitch black, so you could not really see anything. Figured he was lying to sound cool. Time passes. One day, we hear shuffling noises and what sounded like a choking cough coming from tunnel. Thought it could be a homeless person. Ignored it once that thought came up. Next day, friend and I are throwing rocks at the sewer grate. We hear something shuffle up closer to us from the darkness. Made some kind of noise. It sounded like a person. One of the sounds that we heard reminded me of how someone who's boomboxing imitates a hi-hat. Friend and I reel in horror. Tunnel got very cold. We were outside. This was during 95-degree weather in the spring. We ran away and never go back to that part of the riverbed again. We were actually in tears. Would occasionally see black dog that started roaming that area after this incident. Never walked the riverbed again. Work in oil refinery. I was doing inspections while other contractors were excavating about 100 feet away for a new sewer line. Anyone that's never been in a plant like that, it can be very loud. This area was loud enough I could not hear the backhoe mounted jackhammer 100 feet away. All of a sudden, hear a loud crash, like someone dropped a couple of tons from a crane several hundreds of feet in the air. I felt the earth shake. Plant alarm begins wailing. It's loud enough that I can faintly hear it at my house, 13 miles away. Look over at other contractors. They look at me. We all nope the fuck out of there. Get to evacuation area half a mile up the road. We use a multi-band shortwave radio system. Everyone is required to be within earshot of one. No one's radio is working. Whenever we hold the broadcast button, we get a beeping noise. Eventually, we were able to get through. Start calling our guys to make sure they got out. No one else has left the plant. No one heard an alarm. Call main control and ask if the alarm has been triggered. That's a negative. We all talk about what to do. We all describe the exact same thing, about 15 of us. Walk back to the plant, looking like assholes. Ask 2 guys that I get insider info from about it. They look at me like I'm stupid. If the alarm went off, I'd know, because I am the one that pushes the button. I thought at first something catastrophic happened, and they were covering it up, but out of 500 people on site, only the few of us evacuated. The rest of my crew was only a few hundred feet away from me, in the opposite direction, and never budged. The guys I left with are burly union dudes, don't show fear, and don't believe in anything they can't see except for God. If they did not hear it, they would not have left. I am 100% convinced there are monsters or demons in the tunnels of old New York. People go missing, you see crazy shit, you hear things you can't explain. There are thousands of miles of tunnels under New York City. Some are as old as the early 1800s. Old subway systems, access tunnels for sewer and electric. It's a literal labyrinth down there. One time, I saw a creature about 4 feet tall, 1.2 meters, that was all black, with shining bright yellow eyes. We were under an abandoned subway station, and I was camping with these homeless old people before moving down into Pennsylvania. One of the dudes went off to take a shit or something, and he did not come back for almost 40 minutes, so his friend and I went to look for him. We found him hiding inside a crate, holding onto a pipe. He was flipping the fuck out. These guys are mostly drunks, and occasionally do heroin, but not any hallucinogens, so we know he was not tripping balls. He told us There was a demon at the end of the tunnel, hiding in the corner, so we went down there to check. When I shined my light down the tunnel, maybe 100 feet or so, something small and black took off running and into a maintenance opening with pipes and wires and shit. Small enough for a cat or dog to maybe get through, not a person. It was all black and ran upright, small like a toddler with bright yellow eyes. I could not see any clothing or hair or ears. Could have been a ghost, I guess, but I'm convinced it was a fucking monster or a mutant or some shit.